painting time. You don't have to paint at home, but you can paint here. Hey team, I'm Greg, and this is Studio 214. Today we're going to do this fun painting. A beautiful mountain with a lake and waterfall. So here we go. Here's your packing list. Titanium white, yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, sap green, burnt sienna and umber. Ready? Let's paint. We're going to start with throwing some ultramarine blue up on the canvas. No real strategy yet, just throwing up color. Try to make the corners and top darker than the horizon. Here I'm throwing in some blue mixed in with some titanium white to give the sky some depth and contrast. No real decisions have been made yet, and that's cool. We don't want to stress out, we just want to throw color up and be cool. Right now I have a super impressionistic sky, which is cool, but it isn't what I'm going for with this painting. So I'm going to throw in some more white into the clouds, and I'm going to swirl and blend the clouds. That's nice. The sky is not a big feature of this painting, I don't think. It just has to be right enough to have people say, hey, that's a sky, and them's are clouds. And that's what I'm going for. Enough to not notice they're there, to focus on the mountain. For the mountain, I mixed ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson with some burnt umber and got a real reddish purple color. That one. For the underpainting. The foreground is going to have a lot of green, so I want to put its complement in the background so that the foreground will have some good contrast to play off of. Try not to make pyramids. Try to vary the shape and colors. Add some white to the mix to make a misty mountain bottom. Now here you can kind of see that the canvas is spoken, and the contours and shape of the mountain have already revealed where they want to be. So go with it. Sometimes it isn't where you thought it was gonna be. That's okay. Adapt and overcome. Don't fight the canvas. Let it talk to you and listen. This one said that the light source is on the left, so the right side should have shadow. So that's what I did. And now it's knife time. That blue is pretty harsh, so I'm going to mix it with the paint on the canvas so that it will wash it out a bit. Well, a lot. You'll see. That darker color that far back would add a lot of contrast, making for sharp edges. And I think that soft edges look better in the background. Of course, your experiences and opinion may vary. The canvas is super slippery because of the layers of paint, which is cool for this. I found that I do not get the results I want with a dry canvas. Do any of you knife paint acrylics wet on dry? If so, let me know in the comment section. Oh, by the way, whichever way you brush or knife strokes go is going to determine the angle of your mountain slope. So if you want cliffy, craggly, treacherous mountains, paint more up and down strokes. But if you want gently sloping mountains or hills, then drag more to the side when going down from the peak. There, just adding in a bit more shadow color. Gonna soften that a little bit more. Bit more shadow over there. Now I'm putting in the indication of trees. I'm using one of my first brushes, and it's a flat brush. And I'm just throwing them in. Let's go. Just vary the colors and try to stay away from making straight lines and patterns. Warp speed. There we go. Just throw them in. Most of it's going to be covered by the foreground anyway. Just vary the size and the shape and where they are. I threw in a lake with ultramarine blue and then used titanium white to highlight the waves. I'm going for a choppy, windy day. Lots of movement in the water. Here I'm using the color from the trees and that dirty flat brush to make the reflections. I pull down a little bit up from where I think the shoreline will be. Then I lightly go back and forth. That puts a nice little shimmer or reflection in the water. There we go. Little bit of titanium white on top gives it the appearance of some choppy waves. There we go. Now it's time for the foreground. I'm going to use my trusty fan brush in sap green to make some pine trees. Add a little highlight. Each layer of tree is going to be a different color. Darker as it comes to the front to help create some depth. I threw in some ultramarine blue with the sap green to darken up the trees, as you'll see right here. Oh yeah. I made it nice and high to sort of block in the right side of the painting. Yeah. Gives it an edge that's not the canvas. And now I start on the left side, using the side of my brush and pushing down to get the upward swoop of the needles. Same thing here. Gonna make it nice and high to block in that side. It's gonna be a big old tree there. Then I add some highlight. I'm using yellow ochre. Make sure that if you use one color on one side, that you use it on the other, so that you can tie your painting together. There we go. Then I put a little more wave action on the lake. A bit more shadow color. Oh, right here. And I'm using my trusty fan brush and putting in a shoreline. There's the shoreline. I threw in some burnt umber with some titanium white to make the land underpainting. Then I threw in some ultramarine blue to show where the water is coming down from the lake. Then I'm using some burnt sienna and white to make rocks, just dabbing on the canvas where I want each one to go. The general idea of this painting is to have a lake that feeds into a river, and I wanted to try to capture the movement and the action of the water as it charges to the sea. I like movement and depth in paintings. I think it's cool. Here I'm using a dark color to be shadow, and I'm indicating where the water will fall and flow, and what rocks it will go around. trying to be real loose. I mean, I'm not trying to box myself in, paint myself into a corner, so to speak. There's another rock. As you can see, I'm going to start using blue as a shadow on these rocks. You can imagine how it would play tricks with your eye if the same intensity or value of color was used for shadows in the foreground as the background. And here I am just layering on midtones to try to get some real dimension to these rocks. Here's a little bit of highlight where I think the sun would hit these rocks. And here I'm putting in burnt sienna, which looks like a washed out red, which is just what I need to offset all the green. So I put a little on the back where the land is and on the rocks. It will even out when the paint dries. Acrylics have a way of drying less harsh, especially if you layer it on, which is what I'm doing here. It's important that you put it on all the rocks so one doesn't stand out over another. I'm going to use mine as eye magnets so that your eye will be drawn to the center where the action is, and then to the mountain. The trees will act as placeholders so the eye will stay on the mountain. Can you imagine if one of the trees on either side was gone? Your eye would just sort of wander off the painting onto the wall, and I do not want that. Now I'm putting in the water as it gushes over and around the rocks. Using my trusty fan brush, I have several, to paint in the white water action of the cascading water. Whew, look at all that action. It's a whole lot of action right in the center. Little splash going on by the rocks, coming down, having fun, flowing to the sea, inexorably to the sea. Just like the far end, a little bit of titanium white on the left shoreline. Of course, it's going to be splashing up against those rocks. There it is. Just go in and around wherever you think the water would flow. Where it would crash against rocks. Just use your eye as a guide. Just giving a little bit of form to that side of the... Now I'm going to use the 1-inch brush to put in some bushes. That's just sap green, a little bit of titanium white to add some highlight. Oops! Yeah, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. Now I have to fix it. Now I got to put both colors because you want to balance the painting. So both sides have to get it, and then all the trees have to get a little kiss of it. But it's no big deal. Don't be afraid once you highlight something to go ahead and put a little bit of shadow back in, especially if you over highlight it, like on that left side. There we go. Just throwing a little bit of shadow color. I want to talk to you a little bit about the lower left and right corners of the campus. They are super important to not overdo and to not have them stand out. The way I see it, I think that you want to work on them just enough so that they fit with the scene and blend in unnoticed. Sometimes if the color is wrong, they will trap the eye there. And if that's what you want, cool. But that's not what I want. I want people to look at the mountain in all of its majesty. Overdoing the rocks in the foreground will compete with the mountain. And mountains are divas. So I'm going to go easy with the rocks and have them gain intensity as they go up to the center. That way, mountain is happy. I'm going to throw a little highlight on to spice things up. Drop in some final touches. And I think we're done. I had fun. I hope you did too. Thanks a lot for joining me. I'm curious. Do you guys talk and listen to your canvas? Or do you stay with the original idea the whole time? Let me know in the comments. If you like this and would like to see more, please consider subscribing and hit that like button. As for me, I'm Greg, and this is Studio 214. As for me, I'm going to the house. Check you later.